There's a device that changes how some people with diabetes live. Not a cure, not a promise, a tool. It's called an artificial pancreas. The name suggests something more dramatic than what it is. Not a replacement organ, not surgery. A system, one that automates something people with type 1 diabetes do manually dozens of times per day. Most people without diabetes never think about insulin. Their body produces it automatically. Measures blood sugar, releases the right amount, adjusts constantly. The process is invisible. For people with type 1 diabetes, that process stopped working. Their pancreas doesn't produce insulin. So they have to do it themselves. Check blood sugar, calculate carbohydrates. Inject insulin, repeat, all day, every day. The artificial pancreas automates part of that. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to change what daily management looks like. This isn't about whether technology is good or bad. It's not about hope or disappointment. It's about what this system actually does. How it works, what it replaces, what it doesn't. Most people have heard the term. Few know what it means. This was hidden, let's uncover it. Type 1 diabetes affects millions of people worldwide. It's an autoimmune condition where the body attacks the cells that produce insulin. Without insulin, glucose can't enter cells. Blood sugar rises to dangerous levels. The only treatment is external insulin, through injections or pumps, delivered by the person themselves, based on blood sugar readings, food intake, exercise, stress, and dozens of other variables. This means constant monitoring, constant calculation, constant adjustment. There's no break, no day off. Blood sugar can spike or crash at any time. Too high causes long-term damage. Too low can be immediately life-threatening. For decades, this management was entirely manual. Finger prick tests, multiple daily injections, guesswork about timing and dosage. The technology improved slowly. Insulin pumps eliminated some injections. Continuous glucose monitors eliminated some finger pricks. But the mental load remained. The person still had to look at the numbers and decide what to do. Every meal, every activity, every hour of sleep. The artificial pancreas changes this by creating a feedback loop. A continuous glucose monitor measures blood sugar in real time. An algorithm processes that data. An insulin pump delivers doses automatically. The system adjusts continuously, without manual intervention. This isn't a cure. Blood sugar still fluctuates. The system still requires monitoring. But the baseline management shifts from constant manual control to supervised automation. What makes this matter is what it reveals about diabetes management. Most people think of diabetes as just taking insulin. They don't see the invisible workload, the calculations, the predictions, the constant vigilance. The artificial pancreas makes that workload visible by partially automating it. And in doing so, it shows what was always there, the complexity, the cognitive burden, the fact that managing a chronic condition isn't just about medication, it's about decision-making hundreds of times per day. This isn't about celebrating technology. It's about understanding what the technology replaces, because that reveals what living with type 1 diabetes actually requires. The term artificial pancreas is misleading. It's not an organ. It's not implanted. It's not a single device. It's a system. 3 components working together. First, a continuous glucose monitor. A small sensor inserted under the skin that measures glucose levels in interstitial fluid, the fluid between cells. It takes readings every few minutes and transmits them wirelessly. Second, an insulin pump. A device worn on the body that holds insulin and delivers it through a thin tube inserted under the skin. It can deliver tiny amounts continuously and larger doses when needed. Third, an algorithm. Software that takes glucose readings from the monitor, predicts where blood sugar is heading, and tells the pump how much insulin to deliver. This runs automatically, adjusting every few minutes. The system is called closed loop because it creates a feedback cycle. The monitor reports data. The algorithm processes it. The pump acts on it. The monitor sees the result. The cycle repeats. This mimics what a functioning pancreas does. Sense glucose. Release insulin. Sense the effect. Adjust. The artificial version does the same basic process, just externally and imperfectly. The key difference from earlier technology is automation. Before closed-loop systems, insulin pumps existed. Continuous glucose monitors existed, but they didn't talk to each other. The person had to look at their glucose reading and manually tell the pump what to do. Closed-loop systems remove that step. The communication happens automatically. The person still needs to input carbohydrate counts for meals and confirm certain doses. But the baseline insulin delivery, what keeps blood sugar stable between meals and overnight, happens without intervention. This is why it's called artificial pancreas rather than just smart insulin pump. It's the automation that makes it analogous to organ function. The system makes decisions, not just the person, but the analogy has limits. A real pancreas responds within seconds. These systems take minutes. A real pancreas measures glucose directly in the bloodstream. These systems measure it in interstitial fluid, which lags slightly behind. A real pancreas produces other hormones besides insulin. These systems don't. So the artificial pancreas is more accurate than manual management, but less precise than a functioning organ. It exists in the middle ground. Better than what came before. Not as good as what a body does naturally. Understanding this middle ground matters, because the technology is often framed as either revolutionary or insufficient. People expect either a cure or a disappointment, but the reality is neither. It's a tool that changes management without eliminating the condition. The system doesn't replace medical care. It doesn't remove the need for awareness. It shifts the burden. And that shift is significant, even if it's not complete. The algorithm is the brain of the system. It's what makes the artificial pancreas artificial, rather than just connected devices. The algorithm receives glucose readings every few minutes. It doesn't just react to the current number, it predicts where blood sugar is heading. If glucose is rising quickly, it delivers more insulin preemptively. If glucose is falling, it reduces or stops insulin delivery before a low occurs. This predictive element is crucial. Blood sugar doesn't change instantly. Insulin takes time to work. If the system only reacted to current readings, it would always be behind. By predicting trends, it can act before problems fully develop. Different systems use different algorithms. Some are conservative, avoiding lows at the risk of running slightly high. Others are more aggressive, targeting tighter control with more intervention. The choice depends on individual needs and risk tolerance. The algorithm also has safety limits. It won't deliver unlimited insulin, even if blood sugar is very high. It won't shut off insulin entirely for too long, even if blood sugar is dropping. These constraints prevent the system from making dangerous mistakes. But the algorithm isn't perfect. It can't account for everything. Exercise affects insulin sensitivity in ways that vary by person and activity. Stress hormones raise blood sugar unpredictably. Meal absorption depends on food composition, not just carbohydrate count. So the system works best when the person provides context, announcing exercise, entering accurate carb counts, confirming meal doses. The automation handles baseline control. The person handles the exceptions. This division of labor is what makes the system practical. The algorithm can't replace human judgment, but it can reduce how often that judgment is needed. One of the biggest impacts of artificial pancreas systems is overnight management. For people manually managing diabetes, nighttime is particularly challenging. Blood sugar can drop during sleep due to basal insulin from earlier in the day. It can spike due to hormones released in the early morning hours. Either extreme requires waking up to check and correct. Many people with type 1 diabetes set alarms to test blood sugar in the middle of the night. Some wake up naturally when blood sugar drops, feeling symptoms. Parents of children with type 1 often check their child's blood sugar multiple times per night, every night. This constant vigilance creates chronic sleep disruption, not just for the person with diabetes, but for caregivers. The mental load of needing to wake up, respond correctly, and then fall back asleep adds up over years. Closed-loop systems change this by monitoring and adjusting automatically. If blood sugar starts dropping, the system reduces or stops insulin delivery. If it starts rising, the system increases delivery. The person can sleep through these adjustments. This doesn't eliminate all overnight issues. Sometimes manual intervention is still needed, but it dramatically reduces the frequency. Studies show people using closed-loop systems spend more time in target range overnight and experience fewer severe lows. The impact isn't just physical, it's psychological. The ability to sleep without constant worry about blood sugar changes the baseline stress level of living with type 1 diabetes. This is harder to measure than glucose metrics, but it matters significantly to quality of life. The artificial pancreas isn't a cure. It has real limitations. First, it only delivers insulin. A functioning pancreas produces multiple hormones including glucagon, which raises blood sugar when it drops too low. Some experimental systems include glucagon pumps, but most current systems rely only on reducing insulin to prevent lows. This is less effective than actively raising blood sugar. Second, there's a time lag. The glucose sensor measures interstitial fluid, not blood. This creates a delay of several minutes between actual blood glucose changes and what the sensor reports. The algorithm accounts for this, but it means the system is always slightly behind reality. Third, insulin absorption isn't instant. Even when the pump delivers insulin, it takes time to enter the bloodstream and take effect. This delay means the system can't respond as quickly as a real pancreas. Fourth, the system requires user input. Meals need to be announced and carbohydrates counted. Exercise should be logged. The algorithm can't detect these events automatically. If the person forgets or estimates incorrectly, the system's performance degrades. Fifth, the technology can fail. Sensors can be inaccurate, pumps can malfunction. Algorithms can make suboptimal decisions. Wireless connections can drop. When any component fails, the person needs to revert to manual management immediately. Finally, not everyone responds the same way. Individual insulin sensitivity varies. Some people have predictable patterns, others have highly variable responses. The system works better for some than others, and there's no way to know in advance who will benefit most. These limitations don't make the technology useless, but they do mean it's a management tool, not a solution. Artificial pancreas systems aren't universally available. Access depends on several factors. First, regulatory approval. These systems must be cleared by medical authorities in each country. The first closed-loop system was approved in the US in 2016. Other countries followed at different rates. Some regions still don't have approved systems available. Second, cost. The devices are expensive. In the US, an artificial pancreas system can cost tens of thousands of dollars for the initial equipment, plus ongoing costs for sensors, infusion sets, and insulin. Insurance coverage varies widely. Third, healthcare infrastructure. The systems require training, ongoing support, and regular medical supervision. Not all clinics have staff experienced with closed-loop technology. Not all patients have access to endocrinologists who can prescribe and manage these systems. Fourth, individual suitability. The systems work best for people who are already experienced with intensive diabetes management. They're typically approved for specific age groups and diabetes types. Some medical conditions or situations may make closed-loop systems inappropriate. This creates inequality in access. People with better insurance, proximity to specialized care, and resources for training are more likely to use artificial pancreas systems. Others continue with older management methods, not because they wouldn't benefit, but because access isn't available. The technology also requires literacy, both technical and health literacy. Users need to understand how to troubleshoot problems, interpret data, and make informed decisions when the system requires intervention. This isn't trivial, and not everyone has equal support in learning these skills. Artificial pancreas systems generate enormous amounts of data, glucose readings every few minutes, insulin doses continuously recorded, carbohydrate entries, activity logs, all stored and available for review. This data reveals patterns that weren't visible with manual management. Time spent in target range, frequency of highs and lows, how specific foods affect blood sugar, how different times of day show different insulin needs. For healthcare providers, this data improves treatment decisions. Instead of relying on self-reported averages or occasional clinic readings, they can see complete pictures of glucose control. This enables more precise adjustments to settings and management strategies. For users, the data can be empowering or overwhelming. Some people appreciate seeing their control quantified. They use the data to optimize their management and identify problems. Others find the constant stream of numbers stressful, creating pressure to achieve perfect metrics. The data also raises questions about privacy and autonomy. Some systems automatically share data with healthcare providers or caregivers. This can improve safety but also create surveillance. The person's glucose data is continuously monitored by others, whether they want that visibility or not. Insurance companies have begun requesting this data to verify proper use. Employers could potentially access it. The data exists in commercial databases managed by device manufacturers. All of this creates concerns about how diabetes management data might be used beyond medical care. The system generates transparency, but transparency cuts both ways. The most common misunderstanding is that artificial pancreas systems are a cure. They're not. They're advanced management tools. People using them still have diabetes. They still need to monitor their condition. They still face complications if control isn't maintained. Another misunderstanding is that the systems work perfectly. They don't. Blood sugar still fluctuates. Highs and lows still occur. The systems reduce the frequency and severity of these events, but they don't eliminate them. People also think artificial pancreas systems remove all burden from diabetes management. But users still need to count carbohydrates, still need to plan around meals and exercise, still need to troubleshoot when things go wrong. The cognitive load is reduced, not eliminated. There's confusion about who can use these systems. They're primarily for type 1 diabetes, though some people with insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes may qualify. They're not for everyone with diabetes. Most people with type 2 diabetes manage with oral medications or lifestyle changes and wouldn't use an artificial pancreas. Some people think the technology is experimental or risky. The systems currently available are FDA-approved medical devices with extensive safety testing. They're standard treatment options, not experimental protocols. But they're also relatively new technology, meaning long-term data is still being collected. There's also misunderstanding about cost and insurance. Some assume these systems are prohibitively expensive for everyone. Others assume insurance automatically covers them. The reality varies. Coverage depends on specific insurance plans, medical necessity documentation, and sometimes appeals processes. Finally, people misunderstand what closed loop means. They think it means the system is completely independent. But it's hybrid closed loop. It still requires user input and oversight. Fully closed-loop systems that work without any user interaction don't yet exist in approved products. These misunderstandings matter because they shape expectations. When people expect perfection or a cure, reality disappoints. When they expect nothing to change, they miss meaningful improvements. So if the artificial pancreas isn't a cure but does improve management, what does that mean? It means diabetes technology has reached a point where the burden shifts from constant active management to supervised automation. The person is still responsible, but the nature of that responsibility changes. Instead of making dozens of insulin decisions per day, they make a few. Instead of constantly calculating and predicting, they provide context and confirm suggestions. Instead of being the controller, they become the supervisor. This shift mirrors changes in other complex systems. Airplane pilots still fly planes, but autopilot handles routine operations. Drivers still drive cars, but cruise control maintains speed. The human remains essential, but the cognitive load decreases. The difference with diabetes is that the consequence of failure is immediate and personal. A malfunctioning artificial pancreas doesn't just inconvenience someone. It can cause severe hypoglycemia within hours, so the supervision remains vigilant. This creates a paradox. The technology reduces burden by automating routine management. But it also creates new burdens learning the system, maintaining the devices, monitoring the automation itself. For some people, this trade-off is clearly positive. For others, it's neutral or even negative. The technology doesn't make diabetes easier in absolute terms. It makes it different. What's hard changes. Manual control is mentally exhausting but familiar. Automated systems require less moment-to-moment attention, but more technical knowledge and constant device management. Understanding this helps explain why artificial pancreas systems aren't universally adopted even where available. It's not always about access or cost. Sometimes it's about preferring known burdens to unknown ones. The technology doesn't solve diabetes. It renegotiates the terms of living with it. And that renegotiation is worth more to some people than others. The artificial pancreas isn't magic. It's not a cure waiting to happen. It's not the future arriving too slowly. It's a system that automates part of what people with type 1 diabetes do manually. It shifts the burden without eliminating it. It improves outcomes without perfection. For some people, this matters enormously. The ability to sleep through the night, the reduction in daily decisions, the time spent in target range. These changes compound over years into different lives. For others, the trade-offs don't balance. The devices are intrusive. The systems require constant attention. The technology adds complexity rather than removing it. Both experiences are real. The artificial pancreas isn't good or bad universally. It's a tool that works differently for different people. What it reveals is what diabetes management requires. The invisible work, The constant calculation. The vigilance that never stops. This was hidden. Now it's uncovered.